Hi everyone, welcome to the show. This is Josh Frydenberg. He's the Treasurer of Australia.
Occurring in our payments system, and gone are the days of checks. Cash is in decline, and now we've got buy now, pay later, digital wallets, digital currencies that are fast becoming the new norm. And our regulatory system has not stayed up to date with those digital changes. Indeed, it hasn't changed very much in the last 25 years, even though every single day in Australia there's around 55 million cashless transactions worth about $650 billion, and more than 800,000 Australians have owned a form of cryptocurrency, and there are 5 million plus buy now, pay later accounts. So what we're doing is we're modernising the payment system. We're broadening out the definition of the services and the products that can be regulated. We're taking this area out of the shadows and bringing it into a considered regulatory framework, which is world leading. We're obviously focusing on innovation too, and competition and transparency around fees to get better outcomes for consumers. And we want those businesses that are buying and selling cryptocurrencies to be properly licensed, and that can provide greater certainty and security to those people who are transacting in that area. And we're also going to be working with the Reserve Bank to look into the feasibility of introducing a central bank digital currency, which would be a world-leading initiative as well.
Okay.
So financial regulations are coming to Australia. They're gonna gravitate around crypto, and also he says that the central bank digital currency from the Reserve Bank of Australia is going to be covered with these regulations. So I think that something similar to this is going to happen in the United States. We're going to see regulations for the Fed coin, and there's going to be an umbrella that covers crypto with those regulations. So this is the same guy, and he's going to talk about a cyber attack.
Deteriorating relationship with Beijing, with extraordinary claims that Chinese hackers were apparently just minutes away from shutting down 2 Aussie power stations, turning off the lights to up to 3 million homes. It comes as the Prime Minister faces growing pressure to announce a diplomatic boycott of the Winter Olympics in Beijing next February.
To discuss this, we're joined by the Treasurer, Josh Frydenberg from Melbourne. Treasurer, great to have you on this morning. These are really dramatic new claims about that cyber attack on our power infrastructure. Can you confirm, are they true?
Well, I'm not going to go into the details of specific allegations or stories such as those, but what I can say is that the cyber threat is very real. That's why we've introduced legislation to protect our critical infrastructure from such attacks. That's why we've better resourced our intelligence and security and law enforcement agencies, and that is why we're working very closely with the private sector so that they can take their own measures to also enhance their own security. So the cyber space is fast evolving. Technology is obviously rapidly improving, and that is giving, whether they are countries or non-state actors, the ability to cause great harm and great damage.
So on the Winter Games then, will we follow the lead of the Americans and impose a diplomatic boycott?
Well, Sylvia, we've noted what the United States have done. We've had some preliminary discussions internally about Australia's attendance at those games, and we'll have more to say about that in due course, and I'll leave that to the Prime Minister. But what I can say is that we are working through it in a considered way, recognising that we do have some important interests at stake, that sport and politics, they are different realms as well, but we are looking closely at how we're represented.
All right, well, let's move.
All right, so they had a cyber attack, right? And now they introduced the critical infrastructure. They're going to introduce critical infrastructure regulations, and this is odd timing that they're talking about crypto and the central bank digital currency regulations, and he's also talking about critical infrastructure. Now, finance is critical infrastructure, right? So this attack, if you've been following my channel, I've been drawing a line between these cyber attacks and central bank digital currencies and crypto asset networks, simply because, blockchains can't be hacked, right? There's a centralized database, there's one point of failure. If the database gets corrupted, right, then there's no way to that's it, right? But if there's a blockchain based network, you would have to take down every node that's part of that network in order to corrupt the data. So I found that very interesting. Now, Josh Frydenberg in Melbourne Wednesday at the same time will consider a licensing framework that will allow crypto transactions within a regulated environment. It expects advice to be received on both by the end of 2022. So he says that also that this current framework, it will not be Silicon Valley that determines the future of our payments. So they're having more of an active role in regulations and everything, and that we know there's a lot of banks that either had a proof of concept with Ripple, right? There's Commonwealth Bank. There's some of the other big Australian banks that are either RippleNet partners or have some type of relationship with Ripple. This is James Wallace. He's the VP of Central Bank Engagement at CBDC. He's from Ripple.
I could pause there and let my fellow panelists say something.
Yeah, and if you don't mind, which central banks in which countries are you working on or working with?
We're working with many of them. They're mostly under non-disclosure agreements, so I'm not at liberty to share the details. But I would say, we are working with them in each continent apart from Antarctica. The study by the Bank for International Settlements estimates, I think, 80 to 85% of central banks are doing some work. We're at different stages. I mean, we have some active projects, and then we have some early stage discussions. A lot of the banks are still doing research rather than deploying projects. It's relatively early in the life cycle, I think, for CBDCs. I think it's going to be 2 to 3 years before major economies like the US or the Eurozone deploy a CBDC. China is obviously further ahead at the moment. They are well advanced on their pilots.
Yeah, thank you. That's really interesting.
So they have a relationship with the central bank on every continent except for Antarctica, right? So Australia is a continent, so this is my line of thinking. I think, he kind of said that they're working with Australia. And now Ripple is giving guidance to the Australian government on how to regulate crypto, and they wrote a letter kind of telling them, what Singapore has done, what the UK has done with payment tokens, utility tokens, security tokens, have a clear taxonomy for crypto regulation. So there's no uncertainty. There's a clear line. You'll be able to regulate it that way. Now, if you don't know, iTrustCapital/Darren, you're able to open an IRA that you're able to buy crypto assets, and you're also able to buy precious metals. If you use my link, iTrustCapital/Darren, you'll get $100 funding reward. There's a large selection of crypto. There's you can buy physical precious metals as well through your IRA. I think crypto's at this baby market cap, and there's, that's a tremendous upside in the future if you're able to, insulate your gains with IRAs from taxes. You should take a look at it. If this is Ripple's letter to the Australian government, which I'll put in the link in the description below, and you can find it on this site. I can't directly link you to the PDF, but if you go to this website and you search for Ripple, it's number 15. You can click the PDF and see it for yourself. Also, R3 is there. Now, when I said that James Wallace is kind of hinting at the Reserve Bank of Australia, the Reserve Bank of Australia, the Commonwealth Bank, National Australian Bank, and Consensus are working on a wholesale CBDC project. So this is part of the BIS Innovation Hub, right? And they're running a proof of concept. So that means they're just kind of testing it, seeing how it works. So this is based on Quorum. If they're using a private version of Ethereum to run this proof of concept off of. Now, a lot of people think in binary terms. When I log on to Twitter, people are saying, if there's one partnership, that automatically means that's the end of it. They're only exclusively using that chain, right? And I disagree with that. This is a World Bank document that I stumbled upon. So this is exploration of Interledger. And it shows over here the Ethereum testnet and then the XRP Ledger testnet. And this document goes into detail on how interoperability between different chains would work and some of the designs that they've looked for interoperability. So I see a future where there's going to be a vast amount of blockchains for different purposes, and you pick the blockchain that works best for your purpose, and then there's going to be interoperability between those different blockchains. Now, this is Jim Kuna. Jim Kuna is Federal Reserve Bank of Boston. He's more on the technology side. He's not, he's not an economist, but he's more technological. He's on the technological side, and he's working on researching the Fed coin. He's working with MIT. So listen to that.
Experience, right, to join your team to lead that build.
Yeah, we started our experiments with MIT to build this theoretical model for CBDC. We wanted to basically hire people from the outside so they think differently. So most of my team comes from Circle International that created USDC, or they're recent MIT grads or other people that are in the startup world or in the crypto world, because we wanted to think differently about how we do this. Otherwise, we may just pave the cow paths once again.
All right, so most of his team comes from Circle, right? That's USDC. So the team that's working on the Fed coin comes from Circle. He also talked about working with MIT. And the next clip's going to explain this a little bit better. But, MIT runs a validator on the XRP ledger. So listen to this.
Okay, so this would be if there's a private exchange or a private blockchain that's, say, well, let's take Finality. Finality is a wholesale token network that is being built by, I think it's 15 of the largest banks in the world. So they'll have this whole, basically it's a stable coin, and they'll move the stable coin amongst themselves relative to when they're buying and selling securities, they need money on the chain. So that token is the money on the chain. And so, if I was a supervisor of that scheme, I think it would be good to actually have a node on their network so that I could see the flow of money. I could see the flow of, is a particular bank, on the street, they usually know when someone's in trouble before it's obvious to most other people. So if you were on the blockchain, might you see something developing through AI and other analysis that gives you a sense of what may be happening to a particular financial institution or to the scheme itself. So it's really an advanced view, a real-time view of what's happening within that scheme. And I just called that loosely a regulatory node.
Yeah, it's a...
All right, so a regulatory node, right? So MIT has a node on the XRP ledger, as well as Microsoft also has a node on the XRP ledger. But also, this is Stu Alderati. He's the lawyer at Ripple.
Technology officer at Ripple tells me it is. He explains it to me, but I also have hard evidence. The SEC announced about a month or two ago that they're going to establish a node on the XRP ledger and other open and permissionless ledgers. The SEC didn't call Ripple to ask permission to do that. They're just going to do that. The SEC announced about a month or two ago that they're going to establish a node on the XRP ledger. They're going to
All right, so it goes back to Jim's point. If you're a regulator, you would want to put a node onto the blockchain to kind of watch all the transactions. So I found that interesting. This is Michelle Bond from Ripple. This is Michelle Bond that used to work at Ripple but is now at Atom.
Regulators really do care. I mean, let me put it this way. If the regulators in the U.S. wanted to stamp out crypto, that would have happened. And that would have happened a long time ago. That has not happened. And what we're seeing is it's a difficult adjustment, but what they're working on is a way to adapt. And I think that's a really positive and great sign. However, I think there's obviously there's a big learning curve there. So there's a lot of work that has to be done. But I do think that, look, from a policymaker standpoint, they see jobs, They see innovation. We can be obviously a technology leader. And they also see an expanded tax base. So, I mean, I don't think it was lost on anyone here what just happened with the infrastructure bill. There was a really harmful crypto provision in it. That's going to bring a lot of money into the federal government. So that's actually, from a government standpoint, I think a lot of regulators would probably view that as a very positive thing. So it's just a balancing test. I mean, they also want to make sure that they have appropriate regulation in place.
And I think
All right, so if crypto is going to be squashed, it would have been squashed a long time ago. Now with this infrastructure bill, there's a lot of taxable revenue, and our government's in a lot of debt right now. So there's criticisms that it hurts the dollar and everything, but if you really think about it, most of these coins trade against stable coins that are pegged to dollars, and it really strengthens the dollar. So there's more benefits than flaws, and like she said, if they wanted to crush it, they would have crushed it already.
Allowed for national securities associations, and that's what created the NASD, which is FINRA now. So we have a lot of precedent on creating these things. Digital assets are new, so it would take an act of Congress, some legislative text. Maybe we'll see some soon. But in any event, I think that this is a real possibility, and I think it would get bipartisan support. So a lot of the criticisms, I actually think would not really apply here. I mean, if you look at what Adam is doing with our code of conduct and setting the standards, our regulation at Adam is actually higher than anything the regulators have put out themselves. So
all right, so you see how she said that maybe we'll hear something soon, and her eyes lit up and she kind of looked off in the distance. That was very telling to me. Maybe I'm reading too far behind this lines, right? But listen to this again.
So we have a lot of precedent on creating these things. Digital assets are new, so it would take an act of Congress, some legislative text. Maybe we'll see some soon.
So maybe some regulations for Congress, some legislation text. Now, what is a self-regulatory organization? So an SRO is an entity such as a non-governmental organization which has the power to create and enforce standalone industry and professional regulations and standards on its own. So it's kind of its own regulatory agency that the government kind of appoints to overlook something. And examples of this are FINRA on the New York Stock Exchange, and there's a few more down here. But, I think more likely than the CFTC or the SEC getting jurisdiction, a new regulatory agencies is going to kind of look after crypto. And you can see Chicago Board of Trade, FINRA, the Options Clearing Cooperation, these are SROs. So I think, Adam might, just from the way she's speaking and everything, there might be some legislation that suggests Adam is the SRO for the crypto industry. Now, this is Thomas Zeeb from the Six Group.
It's an important
right? Sorry, yes. Sorry, Thomas. Yeah.
Sorry, Andres, it's an important point. A friend of mine is a senior fund manager at BlackRock. And I saw him a couple of months ago, and he said, we can't ignore this. Look at it. My mother in Portugal is asking me why shouldn't I be in Bitcoin? And and that groundswell is there. We have to deal with it. We have to find mechanisms for protecting people from themselves to a certain extent and from bad decisions and from fraudsters, but not limit their access to freedom of investing where they want to invest, as long as they're doing it in a conscious fashion.
All right, so his friend at BlackRock said that his 90-year-old mother is looking to buy Bitcoin, right? And now this has got so much traction behind it. We're at a $2.5 trillion market cap. It can't be ignored, right? And that's kind of what the U.S. regulators have been doing in the past. They've just ignored crypto. But we're at a market cap right now where, something has to happen. So when that something happens, and there's clarity for institutions, for large investors to have confidence, right? I think that's where we're going to see the biggest traction with everything. So if you remember, I put this tweet out a while ago. So several Ukrainian banks are also planning to connect to Ripple technology. And what made me think of this is if you don't follow King Solomon's an excellent researcher and a friend of mine. If you check out his channel, and he's got a lot of really good deep dives and good information. But anyway, he found a document that said that the Central Bank of Russia is testing RippleNet. They're using XRP for transfers or equivalent currency. So they're testing all of this, and they've ran a proof of concept. So the Central Bank of Russia is testing RippleNet. Ukraine has a bunch of banks connected to Ripple, right? And also I believe the Ukraine government's working on a CBDC with Stellar. But anyway, my point being with all this, right, is trustless ledgers, right? If we have a trustless ledger and I'm Russia and you're the Ukraine, we're able to do business with each other and not trust each other, right? We don't have to trust each other, but we know that neither of us are manipulating our currencies, neither of us are cooking our books in any way, because it's out in the open and we can audit and verify every transaction. So I think this is the real beauty behind public blockchains, public ledgers, is enemies can do business in peace. And I think that's going to be the real revolution that comes out of what we see with crypto. So I hope everyone has enjoyed this video. Tell me what you think in the comments below. Please like, please subscribe. I hope you guys have a good night. Thank you.